So this video is going to talk about two things, or focus on two things: the intersection of feminism and Zionism, and how a leftist gets his well-deserved karma, right? But who the bells tone, they tone for thee, right? Okay? So, because you don't deal with feminism, you suffer the results of feminism. You get what you fucking deserve. Especially left-wing men who should know better. But on every single topic, left-wingers are superior to right-wingers, because right-wingers are just stupid. They're idiots for the most part. And when I talk about left-wingers, I don't mean like so-called liberals, like Democrat Party supporters, middle of the road liberals who are actually crypto fascists with diversity rainbow politics. Right, I don't mean that when I mean a leftist, because they're actually more right-wing than leftists. But leftists support feminism and thus condemn themselves. Anyway, let's just watch this and get on with it. Fuck it. How a Zionist feminist defamed him. That's what you should say.
Have you considered calling him anti-Semitic? Feels like he supports the Holocaust.
So yeah, complete non sequitur by Varsh, and a smear job. He's a piece of shit. So Varsh just outright smeared people randomly as paedophiles just because he doesn't like the politics of zero proof. And Varsh has posted some very sus things that should really get him smeared, right? But that's all I'm going to say, because I don't like engaging in that sort of thing. Yeah? So yeah.
In October last year, I was linked a very poor political argument that another creator who I'd previously never heard of made on their stream. So I watched it on my own stream, responded to it, and uploaded the clip to my second channel in a compilation video where I also responded to someone else on that same topic.
So basically, you do take the anti-decolonialism argument too far, right? In my opinion, you take it far beyond practicality from what I've seen. But I like your videos for the most part. You cover the Palestine-Israel topic very well, okay? And like you talk about genocide of people in Canada, the indigenous population in Canada, and Native Americans. There was ethnic cleansing and a genocide, but you seem to imply that it applies now, which it doesn't. It happened in the past, okay? And from what I know, indigenous people actually get a lot of subsidies and get a lot of stuff, right? I could be wrong, I could be an ignorant piece of shit. Feel free to correct me, but I've spoken to some Canadians. They get more than working class white Canadians, from what I can see, especially working class white Canadian males. Okay? Okay. And also, if indigenous culture is suffering, a lot of it's going to do with the mothers, the women, because women dictate the culture. Like the black community has a ratchet child abusing culture because of the black single mothers, and the so-called white supremacist USA enables it with a child support system that fucks over black and white fathers simultaneously, right? And there is systematic racism in the USA. Systematic racism against black men, which black women do not suffer in any regards whatsoever. But anyway, I'm digressing. Let's go on with this.
Little did I know at the time that this would start a chain of events which would lead to me being defamed for 8 months straight as an anti-Semite, alongside a whole lot of other nasty stuff. Here's the clip I was responding to from Aristocracy, the creator in question.
She's a Zionist, so the term aristocracy's ironic, right? I think, because they think they're the aristocracy. But no, that analogy falls apart when you think about it, because feudal lords treated their serfs far better than Zionists treat the Palestinians. Because the thing about the Palestinian conflict, even if they submit, they still get killed, oppressed, abused, and beaten, and jailed, and in prisons. That's the thing. But anyway, digression. Let's get on with it.
Note that the original VOD is unfortunately lost, so I've reconstructed it by cutting out my own reactions to it. That's why there's some cuts. It has not been misleadingly edited in any way. Everything said is still in the exact same order as it was originally.
I think there are a lot of things about Canada that most people take for granted. And I think in general, lefties on Twitter and all of that kind of stuff, I think that they have like a bias of only focusing on the negative stuff. And those negative things are important, but they're not putting them in the right perspective.
So when right-wingers talk about like the collapse all the time and how shit society is, okay, rant on about immigrants, okay, right? So they should focus on more positive things, right? Okay.
Right, like they're not putting it in the context, and their context is usually their lens is very narrow. They're thinking Canada Indigenous, right?
I do think there's a genuine obsession with this, to be honest, and like this decolonisation narrative is actually a passive aggressive dog turd and a weapon used by people, and it's used and abused by feminists. Okay, so I do think there's merit to this, to being anti-imperialist and talking about colonisation, because there's still colonisation going on in the world, in Israel, for example, and it's part of the capitalist system, and it was the birth of the capitalist system, right? Industrialisation was funded by imperialism, by overseas colonies, right? But a lot of feminist man-haters use it in an unsecular manner, the intersectional feminists. They were just like, we've got to decolonise this statue, or decolonise this white historical figure, or we've got to decolonise the school curriculum and don't teach about Anglo-Saxon history, which is just aggression against white culture, right? Anglo-Saxon culture, or whatever, Western culture, right? We should be able to study our history and not have it banned, right? It's just, and also, it undermines and makes the left-wing discourse look ridiculous, because it gets lumped in with that fucking nonsense as well, right? But for example, I don't want Africans to be colonised or neo-colonised or attacked by the West, right? I don't want the countries destroyed. I don't want Palestinians destroyed. I don't want China attacked. I don't want third world countries attacked. I think that the war in Vietnam was a disgrace and a mass murder, right? Okay, I think Latin American death squads who use rape and torture and who are funded by the CIA are a disgrace. You focus on real issues. Some like jumped up upper middle class twat who waffles on about decolonisation actually helps the status quo and helps the system, right? It undermines legitimate anti-imperialist discourse. This is not scripted, so I hope what I'm saying is clear.
And my lens is a little larger. Like, you are too online, like the online left. But yeah, like, my lens is a lot larger. Like, I have different perspectives. I mean, I'll give you an example. Is in Canada, it's kind of just a given that if you don't listen to the police, they're not going to shoot you. Where I come from in South Africa, if you don't listen to the police, they might shoot you or they might rape you.
Okay, bullshit. As a woman, you're not going to get raped by the police, right? You're not going to get shot by them as a police. As a black male, you'll get shot by them by the police. Or, right? Okay, so I call bullshit. And this leftist doesn't call bullshit on that. He just lets it pass silently. Okay?
In Canada, I don't have to have bars on my windows. In South Africa, I do. In Canada...
That's what happens when you keep large sections of the population in poverty as a legacy of apartheid, right? The economic social conditions largely influences people's behaviour, right? So if I was born in the medieval era, I'd think like a medieval peasant. If I was born in an aristocratic family, I'd think like an aristocrat. If I was born in a billionaire's family, I'd be privileged and more comfortable and I'd think like a billionaire. I was born in a third world country and I had an abusive childhood, I'd probably be violent. Who knows, right? We are products of our environment.
I get to live alongside people of different cultures and different languages and different groups, and we all literally get along. It doesn't mean there are not problems. There are definitely problems, but we can literally interact on the street, feel safe with one another, and communicate. It is not that way in the countries I came from.
Well, in Western countries, women can beat men to death and murder them or assault them, stick a glass in their face. UK, Canada, United States, right? So men are actually not safe. Okay, they're less valued than women, so that they're an N-word underclass, right? Okay.
In Canada, the rape rate for women is a lot lower than 50%.
Yeah. It's probably about 1%, yeah?
Where I come from, 50% of all women are raped.
Bullshit. 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 Complete fucking bullshit. Yeah? Okay.
In Canada, I'm not...
No country in the world has ever approached 1 in 4 women being raped, right? As far as I know. Yeah, there might be exceptions due to wartime conditions, the society breaking down, right? The most targeted group of women are outgroup women in war, and even then they're not targeted nearly as much as men, right? And this BadEmpanada, he did a video on the Palestine conflict, and he talked about women were specifically targeted in this conflict, and then he admitted like 73% of the victims were like male. Yeah, people just don't give a shit about single men or men in general.
Forced to go to the army.
Yeah, men are forced to go in the army, not women.
In Canada, I'm not forced to go to the army.
Oh, she's talking about Israel. Yeah. Well, you should be. The thing is, you should be forced to go into the army as a woman. That's fair, right? Right. But if you're going to be part of a colonizer, oppressor state, just because you're female doesn't mean you get to like opt out of your responsibilities in the criminal activity, right? If you're part of a criminal gang, you've got to pull your weight, right? So yeah.
And fight in a war that I don't believe in. I'm allowed to get a divorce without my husband's permission.
You can get divorced anyway, and as far as I know, you can get a divorce in Israel. And if not, so what? You can just run away and run. The thing is, here's the thing: feminists always portray this out of context. Being married doesn't trap the woman anyway, so you can just run up a bill on the man and make him pay the bill, even if he was trapped in marriage. That's how it used to work, right? But I'm gonna have to look up divorce in Israel, and even if you can't divorce in Israel, which I don't believe, that's the exception to the rule. Like every other country in the world, you can divorce. Even Islamic countries, yeah?
Most people in Canada, not all people and not a lot of Indigenous people, but most people have access to clean water. There are a lot of really positive things.
So what she's basically saying, this country's developed, another country's a third world, which is or not developed, which is saying nothing really. It's just taking up space. It's white noise.
About living in Canada, especially for those who are immigrants.
For some extra context, this was in regards to the mass graves of Indigenous children that very recently before this had been discovered in Canada, which had lots of people talking about Indigenous issues there. I think that why that clip is dumb would probably be pretty self-explanatory for the average viewer of my channel, who by now probably at least knows a thing or two about colonialism. But I'm gonna explain it in far too much depth anyway. She was reacting to discussion about Indigenous issues, including genocide in Canada, by...
Well, what genocide in Canada? Do you mean genocide in the past? Ethnic cleansing in the past? There's no genocide now, right? This anti-colonialism narrative, the way it's used, makes people look hysterical and stupid, and it undermines it. And the word genocide gets thrown about too much. Now, I actually call what's happening to the Palestinians genocide now, but I was even because I realised it goes beyond mere ethnic cleansing, right? I think it's a genocide, but I set a pretty high bar for what genocide actually means, because it's politicised, right? Like, people use it against their political enemies so lightly, it just means political oppression, i.e. genocide. Okay.
Implying that they're talked about too much, and proceeding to talk about how great Canada is for her as a non-Indigenous person who moved there.
Yeah, that's called solipsism. It's political solipsism. Like, a lot of people are like that. That's why they're political retards, and they got no ethics, right? My political beliefs are not about me, right? Okay? They're about society on a systematic level. Now, I've suffered certain things due to the way the society is structured, but it doesn't influence my beliefs, right? Okay.
Canada is a country that was conquered from its Indigenous people with a new society, the one that she's praising in that clip, built on the ruins of theirs at their expense. So to imply that people talk too much about the plight of the still incredibly marginalised Indigenous people of Canada, and not enough about how great Canada is for people like her...
Don't Indigenous people get more than white working class people in Canada from the government? From what I've heard Canadians talk about this, right? I might be an ignorant piece of shit on this topic, but yeah. I get the feeling a lot of them self-victimise, like victim narcissists, right? Like, even groups that have been historically marginally oppressed, and they still are oppressed, they can still play the victim narcissist, the fake victim narcissist, right? For example, women do this a lot. They're part of a so-called victimised demographic, and they play the victim when they're not a victim at all. Like, a good-looking black woman, a good-looking Chinese woman, a good-looking Indigenous woman, she's not going to be a victim. She's going to have more life choices and a better life than the average male, okay?
is just really dumb and out of touch at best, and malicious at worst, especially given that even the Canadian state itself has a...
I don't accept what this guy is saying is legitimate. Justin Trudeau, he's a Ukraine Nazi cocksucker, right? The National Inquiry into the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls welcomed Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's statement Tuesday that his government accepts and includes that Canada committed genocide against the Indigenous people. So why is the National Inquiry for missing and murdered Indigenous women talking about this issue? Feminists have hijacked the anti-colonialism narrative. This is what I'm fucking talking about. They should have zero say into this, right? Zero say. And more men get murdered than women. So this is a gendered hate speech group. So it's like the white genocide narrative. Like nutcases focus on white people getting murdered in South Africa and call it white genocide, right? This is the same thing. Women who don't get murdered as much as men, when you focus on them and you erase what's happening to men and call it gendered, that's actually gendered hate speech against men, right? And it's the same narrative as white genocide, okay? Women are a pampered leisure caste who live longer, safer, happier lives than men, period. I'm going to have to look into this, like, genocide's history of Canada, right?
Acknowledge that it committed genocide against Indigenous people. It's exactly the same as, say, complaining that people talk too much about the oppression of black people descended from slaves and...
Yeah, the thing is, the Black Lives Matter narrative is a victim narcissist narrative, okay? Okay, so black men are marginalised. They suffer systematic racism in America still. But Black Lives Matter is led by radical black feminist lesbians who hate black men. And I've even seen Black Lives Matter female supporters in groups that they think are closed badmouth black men and call them rapists, and say they have more sympathy for white women than black men, right? And they don't blame white women for being scared of black men. I've seen them say this. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, right? Is a correct invalidation of BLM, because the problem with Black Lives Matter is it sounds good, right? But when the group supports the black side no matter what, it's racist, right? Okay, if I was part of a group called White Lives Matter and I took the white person's side on every single incident that I saw on the news, right? So, literally, if it was on the news, a white person who attacked a black person, right, and tried to curb stomp him, and the black person defended himself and accidentally killed the white person defending himself, but I took the white person's side, right, you could correctly conclude I'm a racist if I did that, okay? That's what happened with the Zimmerman case, right? Black Lives Matter is racist. And this is all the intersectional muddling and linking all these issues together in a big, jumbly fucking mess, right? That's what intersectional feminism does, and that's how it actually undermines the left, right? If you really care about black people, you've got to look into child support slavery and single motherhood, yeah? And you won't look into that, so you don't give a shit, right? So your concern is fake, BadEmpanada, right? You may not be conscious it's fake, you may generally believe it's real, but your concern for minorities and marginalised groups, and I mean real marginalised groups like black men, is fake. It's selective. It's selective in the same way that Zionist outrage about hostages is. When Operation Hannibal kills Zionist hostages, and then the Zionists cry crocodile tears about Israeli hostages, right? Okay.
in the USA, because the USA works fine for you as someone who isn't from that group, who benefits from the society that their ancestors were forced to build. It's ignoring that what's been done to them...
That's how societies work in general, especially in the past, yeah? Black people benefit from slavery as well, right? Because the dead slaves that were kidnapped, enslaved and worked to death for the benefit of society, black people now benefit from that society. And black people love capitalism. Any black person with any amount of status and living a comfortable life, especially who are high status, they benefit from capitalism, they benefit from imperialism, and they benefit from slavery, including me and you. Right? Okay.
And that what's still being done to them is a part of what has made it good for you and others like you.
What was still being done to them? Can you give examples? Right? I can give examples, but can you? Right? Okay.
It's comical to frame yourself as having a wider lens and a broader perspective, and as being the one who's bringing nuance, when what you're saying really amounts to little more than, people talking about my country's origins and its continued crimes makes me uncomfortable. Because it works
What continued crimes? What continued crimes?
fine for me. Me. Talk about me. That's the exact opposite of having a wider lens. It's the exact...
political solipsism, and that's what feminists and Zionists are like. And this girl you're referring to is a feminist.
The opposite of bringing nuance. It's ignoring the wider context and history to focus purely on how things are for you and others like you who enjoy the fruits of being an accepted, mainstream part of a society built.
Women are an accepted mainstream part of society, right? Ostracization is the male condition, not the female condition.
On the ruins of others. It's the same sort of brainless, defensive reaction you get from American conservatives whenever systemic racism is discussed.
The problem with the discussion about systemic racism, there's lots of bad actors, fake victim narcissists, who tackle a real issue and come up with bullshit like the white supremacy pyramid and nonsense like that. So, like, basically, the white supremacy pyramid, it will attack you for being white and having white privilege no matter what, including me, who grew up in children's homes and who was sexually abused, right? And neglected by my parents. Well, neglected by my mother. Suffered police brutality, right? Grew up in children's homes. Did I mention that? Yeah? According to the white supremacy pyramid, I'm a white supremacist. And if you show tokenism and try to accept black people and try to be colourblind, you're a racist, right? Okay? But if you're racist or you don't accept black people, you're a racist. You can't win according to the fucking pyramid. It's just a passive-aggressive attack. And a lot of it's used by internet sexual feminists to attack men as well. So they don't give a fuck about the issue. People who are fake victim narcissists and use these issues to attack people in a passive-aggressive manner don't give a fuck about the issue. Yeah? That's the problem. And a lot of right-wing conservatives, a lot of them are racist, and a lot of them are going to be denialists no matter what. Right, but a lot of them are reacting to the fake victim narcissists who attack white people willy-nilly for the sake of it, yeah, because there is anti-white racism out there, believe it or not. So I've been attacked for saying I'm against black racists, I'm against white racists, I'm against Chinese racists, right? I'm against Indian racists, I'm against Russian racists, I'm against German racists. Any group, I'm against the bigotry. You don't get to be a bigot just because you're XX this group, right? Okay, because these victim narcissists who pose as a marginalised community just want a pretext to hate, right? Okay.
All lives matter sort of stuff.
All lives matter is a good narrative. All lives matter, yes, yes. Black Lives Matter are bad faith actors, black lesbian feminists who steal money and who hate black men, right? And so out of the three cases, the three main cases that Black Lives Matter protested on, they were wrong on two of them, right? And the right wingers were wrong on one of them, from what I can see. Okay.
Mention that she knows that none of this actually applies to Indigenous people, yet she nonetheless apparently just couldn't resist going on like this in response to people talking about Indigenous issues.
I wonder how many Indigenous men die compared to Indigenous women, right? I wonder.
So especially dumb given the fact that, as she notes in the clip, she previously lived in South Africa, a country...
White South Africans earn nearly 3 times the average wage of black South Africans who constitute 3/4 of the workforce. Yeah, that's a class system and a caste system, right there. Yeah. Now here's the thing, why are Asians and Indians so privileged? That's interesting. Yeah.
Very well known as a pretty good place to live for white people or foreigners from rich countries like Israel, where she's noted that she was from before moving there. The sorts of problems she went over there are...
Now, I'm going to explain to you what this setup is, right here, right? Okay, so this is the undermensch, right? In the eyes of South African society, the blacks, they're treated like garbage, so they're shoveled into cramped spaces, right? And these are the privileged caste. So this is the gender bourgeoisie. Women have a social dominance instinct. They control the family unit, and fencing an area off and having lots of space is part of the dominance instinct, right? This is my domain, this is my nest, this is my territory, keep out, fuck off. And this is like, no, you're undermensch, you don't get to have your own space, you don't get to cordon an area off, we'll just lump you all in together and you just can just be poor, right? Okay? So yeah, so these women here are very well off. And the men, these work upper middle class jobs, right, to earn this space, and the women get to live here rent free if they don't work. They can be housewives. That's how the caste and class system works for gender, sex.
What black South Africans deal with, not relatively well-off immigrants.
That is fucking mad there. That is fucking mad. That's a disgrace. That's a fucking disgrace. Right? You see, this is the thing about racism. It's like racism and there's economics, right? And you've got to deal with the economic foundations of a society to bring justice, yeah? And it's clearly not being done here. Yeah? But this is the instinct: hoard the wealth, give it to all women, and women love this as well, by the way. Now the women here do not like this, right? That's why they beat and abuse their children and beat and abuse their men, right? Because women get more hostile and violent in these conditions, right? And the men get more hostile and violent because they've been beaten by their mothers, and they've grown up in a male-on-male hostile environment where men attack each other as well, right? Okay.
Those black South Africans are in fact analogous to the Indigenous people of Canada, not to her.
I don't think the Indigenous people of Canada live anything like that, as far as I know. You can correct me, but I highly doubt it. So this is like the narcissistic victim mongering and these brainless anti-colonialism narratives. You just lump things together randomly, right? Okay, and poverty is really bad in some first world countries, right? But it's not to the level of South Africa. I'm sorry, unless you prove to me otherwise. I'm willing to learn, but I doubt it.
For Indigenous people, living under the Canadian state is a lot more of a nightmare than a privilege.
No, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. They still benefit from being in a first world capitalist country that feeds off and parasites off third world countries, right? Okay. I'm calling bullshit on that. There's got to be like middle class and upper middle class and even upper class indigenous people, right, who benefit from the system, and even working class, right? I'm calling bullshit on that. I'm sorry. This is.
Everything she listed there that's good for her is not at all good for them. So to bring it up in response to people discussing Indigenous issues is, bad. All in all, the clip was an excellent example of someone just being completely blind to the systems that benefit them at the cost of others.
That's female nature. That's feminism. Like women complain and whine and bitch, and they make shit up and lie and defame, and they're the most privileged group to ever exist in history, right? That's the core foundation of capitalism: female nature, gender relations. Men gain status to avoid deselection, or they can be sexless and without romance, without relationships, without a family, right? And women benefit from it. It's like the relationship between bosses and workers. Women extract the surplus labour from men. That's objectively true. That's not up for debate, by the way. The statistics prove me on that.
And God, who the hell watches this, honestly? How do people like this get viewers? You could talk...
It's because most people are stupid and solipsistic. That's why.
To any random person in Canada, the USA, or Australia about Indigenous issues, and they'd probably give you a similar sort of ignorant, poorly articulated, defensive response. It's just...
The thing is, why do people have a defensive response? And the defensive response can be seen as unnecessary, and it is unnecessary all the time. But again, you have fake victim, passive-aggressive narcissists who use this narrative to attack people and try and guilt-trip them, right? So of course some people are going to have a defensive reaction. Yeah? Right? Yeah. Okay.
So stupid. Boring, uninsightful, generic, simplistic, every negative adjective you could imagine. And that's pretty much the gist of what I said in my short response to her, though in a much less organized way, given that it was an unprepared stream reaction. I then uploaded it as a clip to my second channel. Here's a bit of it where I basically sum up everything that I just said. She thinks that she has some sort of like special larger perspective and that she's enlightening her viewers because she's just glossing over everything regarding the fucking genocide here to talk about how great things are for the people who have benefited from it. It's
okay, so she's basically saying again, I live in a first world country, good. These other countries are less developed and don't have good quality of life. So again, she's saying nothing. Okay.
So absurd. She thinks that she's injecting nuance here. No one who thinks they're injecting nuance is ever actually injecting nuance. Very soon following this, aristocracy started incessantly trying to spread the notion that I'm anti-Semitic.
This is what I get for existing as a Jewish creator. All these quotes are either lies or taken out of context, where I was quoting other perspectives from my own. Now admits invading my blocks in order to harass me. Right? Okay. This is typical feminist Zionist tactics. She's a Zionist tactic. She's playing the victim. This is the problem I'm having it. Let me put this in. Just learned that you can't block another creator from sending you notifications in a community post. LMNL. I'll use this. So of course she's falsely accusing you of harassment, right? Okay. Why is this falsely labelling him as anti-Semite? That's a feminist and a Zionist tactic. Feminists falsely accuse men of being misogynists. Zionists falsely accuse people of being anti-Semite. So this woman's a Zionist. I can just tell from her behaviour, right? This anti-Semite. So again, this is a fake victim narcissist Zionist, right? So they use their fake victim status to attack other people in an aggressive manner, right?
Though she lacks any real evidence for that, so she's stuck to making that claim without actually providing any. And this has been widely accepted by her audience as well as those of the bigger creators who've been aiding her. None of who...
This happens when it comes to feminists as well. They smear men as misogynists and they get aided and abetted by left-wing YouTubers a lot.
Whom need to actually see any evidence for anything before...
Again, you're sort of getting what you fucking deserve because you let her mouth off about false rape statistics that were complete bullshit earlier on. So, for who the bells tone, they tone for thee, right?
They believe it. She's also, quite literally, accused me of being a rapist facing actual charges for the crime, of course while saying it could just be a rumour to a...
So, yeah, false rape smears. And this is a systematic problem. This is part of Me Too. Never seen you do a video on Me Too. Yeah? And Me Too is actually driven indigenous men to suicide, right? Okay? It's driven men of all classes and ethnic backgrounds and social strata to suicide, right? Okay? And for a Me Too to really gain traction, all it takes is multiple women to jump on the false accusation bandwagon and spread rumours, and you're in fucking trouble. Yeah? Right? Okay. This aristocracy is a fucking low-life piece of shit. Yeah? Right. Like BadEmpanada, I don't think you're a low-life piece of shit, but you're very naive on certain topics. But this is a low-life piece of shit. Right here. Okay.
Absolve herself of any blame for intentionally and maliciously spreading heinous bullshit to damage someone else's reputation. So yeah, this is pretty serious. Now obviously, this is just incredibly stupid and she knows it. Okay.
It's not stupid though, because they get away with it, right? If there's a smear and attack and they don't pay consequences, it's not stupid. It's actually cunning on an animal sadistic level, right? Right, she disagrees with you politically, and she's going to smear you to destroy you, right? It's cunning, it's not stupid.
According to the story that she tells about herself, she's migrated to at least 2 different countries, so she absolutely knows that you need to prove that you have a clean criminal record in each of your previous countries of residence to be granted a visa pretty much anywhere in the world. A process that I've personally gone through in Argentina like 4 or 5 times at this point. So the only options here are that the story that she's concocted about herself is false and she didn't know this, or she does know it and she's just intentionally spreading horrible lies that she knows to be false. Both possibilities show her to be an incredibly dishonest person. I've heard rumors that you escaped to Canada to avoid trial for feces eating charges, aristocracy, but I have no clue if it's true. Throughout all of this, I've done my best to stick to attack.
If you did that as a male, no one would care, right? And female criminals can probably still immigrate, right? So, yeah. You live in Canada, you know about that female serial killer, right, who got released, and she ended up having a family. I can't remember her name. You obviously know of her, because you live in Canada. Yeah, that's female privilege in action.
Attacking her for her political views and arguments, regardless of how much she's crossed that line against me. The most personal that I've gotten is making jabs at her for being from South Africa, which is completely acceptable and valid because I've never met a nice South African. Just like it's completely acceptable and valid to make fun of me for my defect of being Australian. Yet she's consistently stuck with these baseless, defamatory allegations that she's been steadily
Streamer who openly said he wants to send a Jewish streamer to a concentration camp while his community advocates for my murder is allowed on Twitch. Twitch support you. So this is what Zionists and feminists do. The same tactic. I'm seeing this on Twitter a lot. Oh yeah, these Hamas supporters, these Palestine supporters, they're supporting terrorism. Why are we allowing this? Why are we being allowed to protest? Why are they being allowed to post on social media? Right? Okay? And she's doing the same thing here against you. Right? Let me read something off the gold high resolution. Just posting some totally not genocidal quotes from my favourite anime streamer. They Palestinians can't come here. The refugees can't come back. There's no room. Israel can't be allowed to have an Arab majority population. It can't be allowed to because another typical Arab country in the Middle East. It needs to remain with Western values. It makes sense to me, at least to have one state for your own ethnic group. I think that's totally valid. The Arabs started this conflict. Israel just defends itself. That supporting Israel as a majority Jewish state is pro-genocide. Yeah. So because there's nothing that's talks about wanting some Jews to a camp there. She's a fucking lunatic. Liar. Yeah.
Escalating to the point that she started multiple campaigns to have people mass report my YouTube and Twitch in an effort to get me banned.
That's actually harassment and stalking. That passes the line to stalking. When someone tries to damage your status and any infrastructure or anything you own or your social media channels, right, with false reports, that falls under stalking and harassment. Is that torturous interference? I don't know. I'm not a legal expert.
So unfortunately, I need to taint my main channel with a bit of a drama video. I'm really sorry about this, but I have little other recourse to get the truth out there.
It's not a drama video, and you shouldn't apologise for exposing a pathological liar, a Zionist feminist, right?
So yeah, I'm being defamed by an anonymous anime avatar streamer, which is just a completely ridiculous sentence. I really wouldn't care about this at all if it wasn't for the much bigger creators who have accepted and spread her narrative without even checking the evidence.
Yeah, that's listen and believe, right? That's how feminism works, and that's how Zionism works, it appears. Very similar political movements, staying the same pathology, it seems.
Talking about them later. Because of them, I'd guess that at least tens of thousands of people are now convinced that our allegations are true, possibly even more. This is a symptom of how this supposed politics space on YouTube and Twitch works.
This is how society works. It's not just politics space. This is how social media works in general, right? Reckful killed himself over false accusations. Yeah, it's par for the course, actually, and no one gives a fuck. No one gives a fuck.
Creators and their viewers actually care very little about politics. At the very best,
they care about status, right? Like you, I generally think you care about politics, but you want status as well, because all men want status, or they're insane, right? If I could get status just by going making funny faces on videos and getting millions of views and making money, I'd do it, right? Okay, so yeah, all men want status, but there's other aspects. There's like wanting to build something legitimate, wanting to actually legitimately care about politics. That's actually different from status grifting. You can actually have something you're interested in and still gain status from it, right? Like a musician or an artist, right? Or philosopher or a political scientist, whatever. But these political YouTube channels are grifters, and that's why they have really piddling, middle of the road, conformist channels, right?
It's more of a secondary theme. It's all much more a vehicle for high school clique interpersonal drama sort of stuff. So
yeah, again, you're calling it drama, but you're actually not analysing what it is, what the motive is behind it. It's status seeking. Men need status a lot. So basically, there's a streamer called The Cult of Dusty, and he says he never had a successful sex life. He married one really average, frumpy looking woman, according to him, from what I remember. And as soon as he gained celebrity status, he got to sleep around. Women actually messaged him because he was status. He got groupies, right? Men want validation, they want acceptance, they want intimacy with women. So people can gain status, and online cliques, having YouTube channels with followings is one way to get status, right? So like Vosh, for example, I promise you Vosh has got groupies now, or girls interested in him, even though he's basically a mutant, right? But Vosh is telling pathological lies, he's pandering to an LGBT community that he hates, like to trans, asexuals. I'm not sure if he panders them anymore, but he's actually a homophobe as well, right? Okay, but it's all about his status, and if he can tear other men down They can tear other people down, other men down, right? That only helps in their mind with their status gain. It's instinct to gain status is also to tear other men down. This is where a lot of passive aggressive instincts come from, or aggressive instincts come from, right? Okay, so yeah.
But they'll gladly run cover for someone who has terrible politics that their purported principles would dictate they should be wholly against, provided that in doing so, they can get back at someone they dislike in the process. I'm going to explain further here by going over the rest of the story, and just completely dismantling this person's entire political ideology in the process. After I posted that first clip, Aristocracy's response was mostly just to claim that she's not white.
It really glows how often people wipe away my Central Asian ancestry just because it doesn't show in skin colour. This is victim narcissist, basically. They always bring, so they'll cute. So they'll this woman's like downplaying indigenous issues, right? But then she goes, oh, I'm dark skinned when it's convenient. White people owning light skin is just another type of white supremacy. And it's pretty fucking bold, even when it comes from leftists. You see, the right wingers can't be consistent. They complain about political correctness, right? Is she a right winger? Probably. But then they use it when it's convenient. I see them do this all the time.
White, but Central Asian, and therefore, apparently, all of my criticisms were automatically invalid. Personally, I already think that appealing to identity to avoid dealing with completely valid arguments against your political views is pretty bad form. And it's even worse when you're completely anonymous and have the luxury of potentially just inventing whatever you want about yourself whenever convenient. I'm personally...
That's why men should be anonymous on the internet. Right? Okay. Just their own safety.
Not really.
Because you could potentially fall victim to a Me Too smear. Right? All it takes, I don't know what your sexuality is, I don't know if you're gay or straight, but all it takes is one 20-year-old girl flirting with you. You find out she's 17, right, online. You break contact with her, yeah, right? And it spreads around the internet and you're going to be targeted for harassment. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And a lot of time these people actually get harassed by completely made up bullshit stories as well. Too. They get death threats.
Into just blindly accepting whatever anonymous accounts on the internet say about themselves when they're backed into a corner in an argument. Anonymity gives you the privilege of being able to say you're whoever you want to. And if you're petty enough, you might just make something up to try and score a cheap win in an argument. And I think it's pretty clear that she is definitely that petty. But her identity is really just completely irrelevant regardless, because her bringing it up is just obviously fallacious. Her argument was just incredibly dumb.
That's what intersectionalists do all the time. They bring up their identity in a non sequitur manner, right? It's very, very common. That's part of feminism. Feminism investing leftism damages it because of that.
Whether she's a white immigrant to Canada or a Mongolian, Jewish, Israeli, South African one, as she claims to be. The other person who I critiqued in that video was Dr. Heem, a POC immigrant to Canada, and he was saying very similar things to Aristocracy. So it just changes nothing. At best, she said, people talk too much about how bad things are for Indigenous people. They should talk more about how good their genocide has been for non-Indigenous people, such as middle-class immigrants like me, rather than such as white people like me. So I responded to her response, basically just saying that, and then didn't talk about her for another couple of weeks. Then, someone in my stream chat linked me a reaction video from her YouTube channel where she critiques a video from Vox on the history of Israel and Palestine. So we watched it. I went into that video not really knowing what to expect since I knew nothing about her wider politics beyond that one exchange weeks earlier, but I was genuinely shocked by what I ended up hearing.
So if she's a dark-skinned woman, why is she using a white girl anime avatar, right? That's very interesting.
My assumption was that she was just kind of a typical centrist or apolitical type person who was just exhibiting the generic defensive reaction that you expect from people from countries like Canada, Australia, or the US when...
Well, again, the defensive reaction is sometimes justified, like the victim narcissist using the indigenous label, right? Being very manipulative. Lots of groups do this. Feminists, POC groups, whatever the personal colour group they are, right? Okay, I think white's a colour, isn't it? Okay. So, of course, people have a defensive reaction. And if people didn't use this bullshit in a passive aggressive manner, there'd be less pretext for the defensive reaction, right? I know I'm repeating myself. I'm going to end this soon, don't worry.
When they're confronted with indigenous issues. Dismissiveness, discomfort, you know, all that sort of stuff.
And then this is why they do it, to make them feel uncomfortable. Now, me, I don't identify with a nation. I'm not a nationalist, right? I'm not proud of being British. I'm not particularly ashamed of it. I don't get defensive. I don't particularly identify with one power block over another, right? There's a power block I absolutely hate. I hate NATO, but it's not because I love the other power block they're competing against. It's just because I hate NATO. Like, Russia is a shit country in a lot of ways, right? I don't like their prison system. I don't like a lot of their reactionary values. I don't like their hypocritical false tradcon values either, because it's not a tradcon country, but that's a massive digression, right? But it's still a lot better than the NATO countries, right? So if you say something that's objectively true about British history and it makes Britain look bad, I don't get defensive, right? Okay? Right? So, yeah, so I don't identify with it, but a lot of people do. They identify with the nation, they're biased towards it, they get defensive. And also, you get, the problem is you get nut jobs who want to take white history out of the curriculum. Oh, we can't study Anglo-Saxon history in university because we decolonise academia. So that's just an aggressive attack on white people and their culture, right? It doesn't need to happen. There's no need for it, right? There should be no ideological reason to decide this part of history doesn't get studied and this does. Okay? Okay? So anyway, yeah.
There was nothing really special or weird about that, aside from the fact that despite having such a
So, yeah, so again, people identify with the nations. This is the point I'm trying to make. People identify with groupings with the nations, and people know this, and they attack it in an irrelevant and pointless manner to make them feel uncomfortable. It's part of the false victimhood, narcissistic sadism from a lot of these intersectional groups that actually undermine legitimate issues, right? And there's real structural issues due to capitalism, right, that need to be addressed, and that do affect indigenous people, that do affect people of colour, that do affect working class people of all races, including whites, right? And especially men. Men are at the bottom of the pecking order in capitalism, okay? And you'd probably scoff at that if you've ever heard that.
completely uninteresting perspective and less charisma than even me somehow, she nonetheless had a stream with a couple hundred viewers and was being held up as a bastion of logic and reason by several large, supposedly left-wing streamers. Oh boy, was I wrong. She's a lot worse. She's a straight-up Israeli ethno-nationalist. Someone who thinks that ethno-states, meaning states that aim to maintain a certain ethnicity as at least the majority of their population as a matter of intentional policy, are valid, and that Israel should be one and should exclude Palestinians to that end.
So we got, yeah, fuck ethno-nationalism. Anyone who's an ethno-nationalist, you're scum. I'm against white power, black power, right? Whatever power, right? You see, the thing is that we actually enable a lot of black power and anti-white racist narratives because they're marginalised and oppressed, and they get to act however they want and get to violate ethics and principles, right?
Okay, so I need to give you guys a bit of a short background on Israel and Palestine to give us some context before...
Right, I'm done. I'm not going to go any further into this. Okay, so it's not surprising that other so-called quote-unquote bread-tube leftist channels back her, because they're not really left-wing, right? And how left-wingers deal with men's issues and how they talk to low-status men, incels, misogynists. They got real, like, autists, basically attack them for being mentally disabled. Real ableist discourse. Because it's male hostility. Protect, gain the status. Attack other men, tear them down. Signal to women that those are the bad men and we're the good men that will defend you and attack other men for you, right? So, but you sort of brought this on yourself because you've enabled this your entire life, and you don't talk about a core foundational issue of left-wing, what should be a core foundational issue of left-wing politics, gender dynamics, right? Okay, I am done, over and out.